Escape has been at the forefront of everyone's minds since the very beginning of the Amazing Digital Circus. The mere prospect of it is what motivates Pomni throughout the first episode. In fact, her desperate attempt at reaching her conjured exit door is the first thing we ever see her do as a character. Kaufmo's abstraction is born from the very same desire, as evidenced by the scribbles strewn about his bedroom. The coping mechanisms formed to protect against this impossible desire are the foundation that most of the cast personalities and character traits most firmly reside upon. At one point or another, Pomni, Jax, Ragatha, Zubul, and Gangle all wanted to leave the program. My goal in making this video is, over the course of 3 segments, to convince you that by the end of episode 8, they no longer do. Or at least to provide an analytical approach as to why I believe their desire has shifted to stay over time. Red or blue? The choice at the climax of episode 7 holds the weight of the entire narrative upon its simple proposition. Stay in the digital circus or leave? It would be remiss of me not to mention a similarly color-coded choice in a similarly crafted narrative that we all know. That being the red pill and blue pill from The Matrix. Now, I haven't seen The Matrix, so you'll have to take this next bit with a grain of salt, but we have to consider the language used regarding the choices in each respective piece of media. In Digital Circus, it's a simple description laid out by a computer. It's an artificial assertion just like the rest of the episode's adventure. The red button will close the console and keep all players inside the circus. The blue button will end the game and disconnect all players. In The Matrix, the decision is laid out by a person, someone with a more subjective view of what impacts it all holds. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe what you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Both Morpheus and Cain are well-intentioned in fundamentally different ways. Morpheus, a man born into a world corrupted and controlled by artificial intelligence, later to be freed, is extending his helping hand to someone who needs it. Cain, on the other hand, is an artificial intelligence born into a world of humans, cast aside because he wasn't good enough. He extends his hand to the members of the circus, not to help them escape the digital world, but to find more of a home within it. And I find it fascinating that in The Matrix, it's the inverse. The red pill is meant to catalyze escape. Why isn't that the case in the Amazing Digital Circus? Shouldn't the red button represent freedom? Hold on a second. Maybe it does. In an interview with Movie City News from 2012, Matrix director Lana Wachowski states that what we were trying to achieve with the story overall was a shift, the same kind of shift that happens for Neo. That Neo goes from being in this sort of cocooned and programmed world to having to participate in the construction of meaning to his life. Now, there's more to this quote and more to this interview than I've relayed here, but I want you to pay attention to this wording here. Participate in the construction of meaning to his life. This is a profound message, and one which calls to mind the Amazing Digital Circus instantly for anyone familiar with what Gooseworks has said about the series. In a Tumblr post from 2024, in response to the question, "What's a message you want people to take away from the Amazing Digital Circus?" asked by Paradox Emo Bunny, Digital Circus creator and writer Gooseworks said that there's meaning to be found in a stagnant life. With this quote in mind, Jax's panicked decision to press the red button at the end of episode 7 feels inevitable. Why, though? Why is a stagnant life their pathway to freedom? What do these characters have to gain by being stuck here? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I believe Cain's death will be the knell that encourages them to find true agency and self-actualization in their new home. I could be, totally wrong, by the way, which is fine. Whether this analysis ages like wine or like milk, I just want it to be interesting to look back on. Now, hear me out as I dive into why I think maybe living in the digital circus for the rest of their lives won't be so bad for our cast of characters. Why I think they actually want it by the end of episode 8. If we use color theory to interpret the feelings and motivations of the show's characters, the collective desire to live in the circus becomes even more apparent. The color red is dominant throughout the show, and no small amount of that is in the characters' designs. Every single one of them has elements of both blue and red somewhere on their clothing or bodies, showing that no one in the story is without that want, or perhaps need, to stay. Yes, I know this means everyone also innately wants to leave, but that's more apparent in their words and actions, and also I want to talk about symbolism for a second. It should also be worth noting that throughout the show, many of the characters' complaints that they lay out regarding the situation are more so directed towards each other or the adventures or Kane or their bodies than it is towards the act of being trapped in the circus itself. Pomni, of course, is covered in equal parts red and blue, very intentionally. She's the character we most clearly see transition from one stance to another throughout the narrative. She's a perfect representation of both colors, both desires. Ragatha wears a blue dress while her hair is a stark red. She outwardly projects a desire to leave, but at the literal roots of her feelings is a want to stay. I mean, hell, Gengel's entire body is red except for her mask. Moving on to the rest of the characters, we have Jax and Kinger, whose body and clothes respectively are purple, a mix of red and blue. And last but not least, we have Zubul, a character whose defining trait is their lack of understanding of what they want to do with themselves, and as such can freely choose how much red or blue they want on their body at any given moment. It should be noted that in episode 7, when everyone is in Kane's office, their limbs have a lot of both colors. Even abstracted characters like Kathmo, Ribbit, and Queenie all have red on their clothing. The point I'm trying to make here is that regardless of what they say, the visual storytelling the show is putting forward is telling us that each of them would have pressed the red button, depending on their mental state when walking into Kane's office. Hell, in episode 8, Pomni openly expresses her desire to give up on escape and make the most of her life in the digital world. This is backed up by the symbolism of her seeing herself in the mirror and subconsciously bringing her right, red hand up to her face, to contrast her doing the same with her blue hand in episode 1. She wants to live there, and I think all of the other characters do as well, and will be fully comfortable expressing such by the end of episode 9. Well, maybe Jax won't, but we'll see how much character development he gets in the finale. Oh, and while we're talking about color theory and how red and blue are used symbolically throughout the show, what color is the exit door again? The exit door? It's red! It's been red the entire time, because this door has never and was never meant to represent an actual escape from the program. It's a storytelling tool used to showcase what's on the mind of the characters who see it. That's what the Conjuration reveal in episode 8 was all about. Think about it. If it were really meant to provide even the illusion of escape to whoever conjures and enters it, why would it be a maze of backrooms-esque undecorated hallways? Hallways that loop and twist in on themselves until eventually leading to... Wait. The maze within the exit door eventually leads to the computer which houses the Amazing Digital Circus. The very console, very headset, and very same program which every member of our beloved cast got stuck in. The exact same site they would have seen before getting isekai'd out of the physical world. Almost like they felt lost and confused in their normal, repetitive, day-to-day lives until escaping into the circus. The digital circus is the exit. It is the freedom they're looking for, one they would have had to find by going definitively and deliberately out of the way from their daily routine. We know this to be the case with Pomni thanks to her mentioning how she ended up there in episode 5. Her entire hobby as a video-making explorer was born from her dissatisfaction with her life. With Ragatha, it's less obvious, but to me it seems clear she would have had to have been slacking off, or otherwise intentionally ignoring her responsibilities as a real estate agent, as evidenced by the opening of episode 8. Kinger seems to have joined accidentally, but using information we have about Scratch, knowing he had a brain tumor, it's very likely he began developing the digital circus in an effort to escape his fate. Oh, and what color is Scratch's shirt? Red! Even Jax, someone whose past we only see cryptic glimpses of, potentially found his way to the circus while escaping real-life responsibilities. I personally believe he committed a hit and run, but we don't have any concrete evidence. The point is, I believe that every circus member whose origins we know of, or at least have glimpses of, has a strong personal reason to have escaped into the circus. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about digital copies theory. This video isn't meant to serve as an attempt to prove this theory is correct, but I'm writing this segment with the assumption that it is. For those unaware, the theory posits that rather than the cast of the show being hooked up to VR headsets and kept physically trapped in the program, it is instead the case that their minds were simply digitally uploaded into the circus, allowing their physical bodies and brains to live on unaffected. Now, since I believe this to be true, I more specifically want to discuss how the decision to stay in the circus can be impactful when the ability to make a choice in the first place is removed. Can we still find agency in the character's actions this way? I believe we already have, and again I'm going to point towards Pomni in episode 8 for this. As we've already gone over, Pomni has been grappling with this all-consuming need to escape since the moment she got isekai'd. But in episode 8 she acknowledges the truth which, failing to accept, led to Kaufmo's abstraction. There is no escape, and coming to peace with that is the only path towards a stable life for them at this point. I believe this to be a profound and empowering message to internalize as a viewer. When you're found in an awful situation where you feel trapped and you've spent a long time looking for some magical solution, it can be far more productive and a lot healthier to simply make the most of what you have. Pomni did not give up at that moment. He resolved to live a better life. That's inspiring. And with the death of Cain and the revelation that they can enhance their conjuration skills, they now have all the time and ability in the world to quite literally build a home for themselves in the circus. Regardless of if they can actually escape or not, that's not where the show is heading. It's heading towards a future where these characters live in the circus instead of survive it. I hope you'll enjoy hearing what I had to say. I just became a fan of this series shortly after the release of episode 8, but I've been doing a lot of thinking and really wanted to put my thoughts out there before the finale. Cutting it close, I know. What did you all think of the analysis? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, as well as any ideas you have. I will say this is my first time making a video like this, so please be nice. I wrote the script having not seen the trailer for episode 9, as I want to go into the finale as blind as possible. But that being said, I love this series, and I can't wait to see it. I hope you'll enjoy it regardless of how it all ends. And again, thank you for watching and listening. I might make a follow-up video detailing my thoughts on the finale after it releases on YouTube. Until then, take care!